Dr. Elias Ward sat alone in his small lab, surrounded by old machines and flickering lights. The outpost was built into the side of a cold asteroid, far from any sunlight. Only the stars outside his window kept him company. Elias worked silently, his hands steady even after many hours without rest. He was building something that could get him killed, a signal jammer small enough to fit in his pocket, but strong enough to break the Helian control network. The Helians were not kind rulers. They had taken Earth 100 years ago and spread their rule across the stars. To them, humans were just workers, useful but replaceable. Every human in the Dominion had a small neural tag inside their heads. It kept them calm, obedient, and unable to fight back. But Elias had learned how to block it. For 10 years he worked in secret, pretending to fix old mining tools while he built something that could free them all. He stopped for a moment, listening. The air was still. The humming of the life support system was the only sound. He looked around uneasy. Something felt wrong. Then the door to his lab exploded. Metal flew across the room. Smoke filled the air. Elias dropped behind a desk, his heart pounding. From the smoke, a shadow stepped forward. Tall, confident, human. A woman in a dark flight jacket and armored boots. She looked straight at him and said in a voice that shook the room, "Try to stop me." Elias stared, speechless. Who are you?" he stammered. The woman brushed dust off her jacket. "Captain Mara Vance, I need your help." Elias blinked. He had heard that name before. There were whispers in the underground channels, stories about a human pilot who defied the Helians, who stole ships and freed prisoners. But most thought she was a myth. "You shouldn't be here," Elias said quickly. "This station is under Helian control. They'll find you in minutes." "They already did," she replied calmly, tossing a small metal drive onto his desk. "That's why I came to you." Elias picked up the drive carefully. The label on it made his heart skip. It read, "Dominion Neural Grid, Core Frequencies." He looked up in shock. "Where did you get this?" "I stole it," Mara said simply. "From the Helian command spire. They'll be after me soon. But if I can get this to someone who can use it, someone like you, maybe humanity still has a chance." Elias shook his head, fear rising inside him. "You don't understand. If the Helians even suspect I helped you, they'll destroy this entire outpost." Mara stepped closer, her eyes burning. "And if we do nothing, they'll keep controlling every human mind forever. Tell me, Doctor, do you want to live safe or live free?" Elias froze. He had spent his whole life hiding, building his device in silence, too afraid to act. But something in Mara's voice and the fire, the courage, reminded him what freedom used to sound like. Before he could answer, a loud alarm began to ring. Red lights flashed across the lab. The outpost AI announced in a cold voice, "Helian security incoming. Unauthorized life form detected." Mara pulled a blaster from her side and checked its charge. "That's our cue," she said. Elias panicked. "You brought them here." "I brought hope," she said, smiling. "Now help me keep it alive." They ran down the narrow corridor as the alarm echoed through the metal walls. Elias grabbed a small case, his jammer prototype, and stuffed it into his coat. Behind them, the heavy steps of Helian enforcers shook the floor. The aliens were tall and silver-skinned, with glowing eyes and long, jointed limbs. They carried energy weapons that could melt steel. Mara kicked open another door and led him into a service tunnel. Sparks flew from the ceiling as blaster fire followed them. "Left," she shouted, and Elias turned just before a bolt of light burned the wall behind him. They dropped into a maintenance shaft. Elias gasped for air. "There's no way out from here." Mara grinned. "There's always a way. You just need to kick hard enough." She crawled ahead, opening a small hatch that led to an old cargo bay. Inside stood a dusty transport ship, one that hadn't flown in years. "You can't be serious," Elias said. "That thing is ancient." "She's a classic," Mara replied proudly. "And she still runs. I fixed her up last time I was here." "You've been here before?" "Long story," she said, jumping into the pilot seat. "Now strap in." Elias hesitated. He had spent years avoiding attention, working quietly to stay alive. Now, because of one reckless woman, he was about to flee from the most powerful empire in the galaxy. But deep down, something in him had changed. He couldn't go back to being silent. He climbed aboard and strapped in beside her. The engines roared to life, coughing smoke before stabilizing. Outside, the hangar doors began to open. Helion soldiers appeared at the edge of the bay, aiming their weapons. Mara smirked. "Try to stop me," she whispered again, and slammed the throttle forward. The ship shot out into open space, fire trailing behind it. The Helion guards fired wildly, but the shots missed. As the stars stretched ahead, Elias felt both fear and wonder. He had never been this far from safety before. The outpost shrank behind them. In moments, it was just a dot among the stars. Mara switched to autopilot and leaned back. "Well, Doctor, congratulations. You're officially a criminal." Elias gave a weak laugh. "I suppose it was about time." She turned toward him. "That thing you're hiding, the jammer, it works, doesn't it?" He hesitated, then nodded. "In theory. It can block Helion control signals for a small area. I never tested it on a large scale." Her eyes lit up. "Then maybe with this data," she tapped the stolen drive, "we can build something that frees every human in the Dominion." Elias stared at her. "You really believe we can win?" "I don't believe," she said softly. "I fight." Silence filled the cockpit for a moment. The hum of the engines was steady, the stars glowing like sparks in a dark sea. Elias looked at her again. This woman who had kicked open his door, destroyed his quiet life, and dragged him into danger. And yet for the first time in years he didn't feel afraid. He felt alive. "Where are we going?" he asked finally. Mara looked out at the stars and smiled. "To the edge of the Dominion. There's a place called Haven Reach. Humans live there, free from Helion rule. If we can reach it, we'll have friends, ships, and time to plan." Elias nodded slowly. "And if we don't? Then we make our stand somewhere else," she said simply. "As long as we keep moving, we're still free." Suddenly, the ship's warning light flashed red. "Incoming signal," Elias said. "It's Helion pursuit ships. They're fast." Mara's hands flew over the controls. "Hold tight." The stars blurred as she pushed the engines to maximum power. The old ship rattled, metal groaning, but it held. Laser fire flashed behind them like lightning in the void. Mara turned the ship sharply between two asteroids, then dove into a dense debris field. The Helions followed, their glowing ship slicing through the darkness. "Can't you jam their sensors?" Mara shouted. Elias grabbed his device, adjusting its settings. "Maybe, if I boost the output." He pressed a button and the device hummed with a faint blue glow. The chasing ship suddenly lost lock. Their radar screens went blank. Confused, the Helion pilots pulled away, losing sight of them. Mara laughed. "You did it!" Elias smiled faintly. "It's temporary, but yes, they won't track us for a while." Mara slowed the ship and leaned back, exhausted but grinning. "See, you didn't stop me, Doctor. You joined me." Elias couldn't help but smile. "Seems so." Through the front window, a vast stretch of space opened up before them, endless and full of stars. Behind them, the outpost burned in silence, a symbol of the life they had left behind. Mara looked out, her expression softening. "You know," she said, "doors aren't just meant to keep people out. Sometimes you kick them open to let light in." Elias nodded, watching the stars. "Then I suppose the door is open now," she smiled. "Good. Let's see how far we can go before they try to close it again." The ship drifted quietly into the endless night. Two humans alone against an empire, and for the first time in a century, hope moved through the stars again. The ship drifted through endless space, far from the reach of any star. Inside, the hum of the engines was steady, like a heartbeat keeping them alive. Mara Vance sat in the pilot's chair, her eyes fixed on the glowing map of the galaxy. Beside her, Dr. Elias Ward was checking the readings on his small jammer device. It was damaged from their escape, but still functional. Barely. For 3 days they had flown in silence, avoiding Helion patrols. Their food supply was low, and the ship's oxygen filters needed cleaning. Yet neither of them complained. They were running toward something bigger, freedom. Elias finally broke the silence. "How far to Haven Reach?" "Half a day if we push the engines," Mara said without looking up. "If the Helions haven't blocked the path," Elias frowned. "What if they did?" Mara smiled slightly. "Then we make a new path. That's what humans do best." Her confidence was strange to him. She had no army, no allies, only an old ship and a stolen data drive. Yet she acted like she carried the future of humanity in her hands. And maybe in a way she did. Arrival at Haven Reach was not much to look at. From space, it appeared as a cluster of asteroids tied together by metal bridges and old ship hulls. But to humans, it was the last free place in the galaxy. A hidden refuge for those who escaped the Helion Dominion. As they approached, a voice came through the comms. Unidentified ship. You are entering restricted space. State your name and purpose. Mara leaned toward the microphone. This is Captain Mara Vance. I'm bringing a scientist with something the Helians will kill for. There was a long pause. Then the voice replied softly, Welcome home, Captain. The metal gates opened and the ship slid through into a wide cavern lit by glowing lamps. Dozens of humans stood waiting. Engineers, pilots, workers, even children. Some looked at Mara with awe. Others with disbelief. She's real, a young mechanic whispered. The captain who defied the Helians. Mara smiled at them briefly, but her eyes were tired. Elias, she said, meet what's left of the human rebellion. Elias stepped out amazed. He had never seen so many free humans together. They were rough and under-equipped, but there was a spark in their eyes, hope. Something he had not seen in years. A tall man with gray hair walked up to Mara and hugged her tightly. You made it, he said. Barely, she replied. Ryan, this is Dr. Elias Ward. He built something we need. Ryan turned to Elias and nodded respectfully. We've heard of your work, Doctor. The jammer, right? Can it really block their control network? Elias looked around at the tired but determined faces. It can, he said, but not for long. It was built for small areas, in a lab, maybe a single colony. To help everyone, we need to make it stronger. Mara placed the stolen data drive on the table. And we'll use this to do it. Everyone leaned forward. The drive contained Helion frequency codes, the very signals they used to control human minds. With it, Elias could build a jammer powerful enough to break the chains across entire worlds. The test mission. They worked for days, without rest. The sound of welding, typing, and engines filled the air. Humans from different backgrounds, miners, technicians, and ex-soldier, came together under Mara's lead. Elias guided them with quiet focus, teaching them how to build the upgraded jammer using scavenged parts. As the machine grew, so did the hope in everyone's hearts. But the work was dangerous. The Helians had patrols everywhere. Soon a message reached Haven Reach. A small human colony called Tyrion 4 had gone silent. Rumor said the Helians were installing new control transmitters there. Mara slammed her fist on the table. If they finish that, the colony will never wake up again. Ryan frowned. It's too risky to go there. We can't fight them yet. We're not fighting, Mara said. We're testing, she looked at Elias. This is the moment, Doctor. We take the jammer to Tyrion 4. If it works there, we can save thousands. Elias hesitated. If it fails, we'll die. Mara's eyes didn't waver. Then we die trying. But if it works, we light the first spark of freedom. Ryan sighed. You'll need a small team. No bigger than 3, Mara smiled. Perfect. Me, the doctor, and 1 pilot. Tyrion 4, the journey took 2 days. The planet was covered in mist and metal towers, a mining colony where humans worked under Helion watch. From orbit, Elias could see the control beacons glowing blue, pulsing in rhythm. Those signals kept the colonists docile and obedient. Mara parked their ship behind a broken ridge. All right, she said, tightening her gloves. Doctor, you get to the main control hub. I'll clear the way. Clear the way? Elias asked nervously. How exactly? With a smile, she said, loading her blaster. And a bit of chaos. Before he could protest, she was already gone, running down the rocky slope like a shadow. Elias followed carefully, his jammer strapped to his chest. They reached the colony quietly. Humans walked in lines, silent, their faces blank. Helion guards floated above them on silver platforms, watching with glowing eyes. Elias felt a chill. They don't even look alive, he whispered. That's what control does, Mara said softly. Takes your fire. Takes your soul. She handed him a small signal chip. When you reach the hub, plug this in. It'll connect your jammer to my system. I'll protect you from here. Elias nodded and moved through the shadows. His heart pounded, but he kept going. He slipped into the main building, the tower of steel and wires, and found the control core. Blue lights flickered across the walls like veins of energy. He placed the jammer on the floor and began to connect wires. His hands trembled, but he focused on the rhythm of his work. Behind him, he could hear distant echoes of blaster fire. Mara was keeping the guards busy. He pressed the final button. The jammer came alive, glowing bright blue. A pulse spread through the tower, then through the colony, like a wave of light. Elias held his breath. At first, nothing happened. Then one by one the humans stopped walking. They blinked, looked around. Confused, they touched their heads, whispering to each other. A woman dropped her mining tool and said, her voice trembling, "I can think again." The wave grew stronger. Across the colony, people began to wake up, their minds clear for the first time in years. The fight for freedom outside, the Helians realized something was wrong. Their sensors screamed warnings. Mara fought her way through the streets, dodging blasts and shouting orders to the newly freed humans. "Don't run," she yelled. "Help each other. Protect your people." For the first time, the humans fought back. They picked up fallen weapons, used machines, and worked together. The Helians were powerful, but they were outnumbered and confused. They had never seen humans act freely, think freely, fight freely. Elias ran out of the tower just as Mara came toward him, smoke and light behind her. "It worked," he shouted, breathless. Mara grinned. "Told you. You just needed someone to kick open the door." Together they watched as the colony pushed the Helians back. Ships fled the atmosphere. The control beacons exploded one by one. By nightfall, the Helians were gone. Aftermath. Mara stood on a hill overlooking the colony. Fires burned in the distance, but they were fires of victory. Humans cheered and hugged one another, crying with joy. For the first time, they were free. Elias walked up beside her, exhausted but smiling. "You did it," he said. She shook her head. "We did it. All of us." He looked at the stars above. "Word will spread. The Helians will know. They'll come for us. Let them," Mara said. "They'll learn something about humans they never understood." "What's that?" She turned to him with a quiet smile. "You can cage a body, but not a soul." Elias nodded slowly. "Then this. This is the spark." "Yes," she said softly. "The spark in the void." They stood together as dawn rose over Tyrion 4, the light touching the faces of free humans. For the first time in 100 years, people looked up at the sky not in fear, but in hope. The sky above Tyrion 4 was no longer silent. Ships of every shape and size filled the orbit, patched together from scavenged parts, old freighters, and stolen Helian vessels. This was humanity's fledgling fleet, born from courage, hope, and the spark Mara Vance had ignited. Inside the command ship, Mara paced the bridge. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the data screens. Beside her, Dr. Elias Ward checked the upgraded jammer, now capable of blocking Helian control across multiple planets. The device had grown larger, heavier, but more powerful, the culmination of all their work. Ryan, the leader of Haven Reach, approached Mara. "The Helian fleet is approaching fast. We can't hold them in open space." "You know what this means," Mara didn't flinch. "It means we fight differently. We don't just survive, we win." Elias looked at her, a mix of awe and fear in his eyes. "You really believe we can defeat them?" "Entire fleets and their mind control network?" "Yes," she said simply. "We already did it once. Now we do it again, on a bigger scale." The plan. Mara gathered the fleet commanders in the strategy room. On a hollow map, the Helian armada stretched across orbit, hundreds of silver ships, each bristling with energy weapons. "Our goal is the core spire," she said, pointing to a massive Helion structure orbiting Earth. "The signal from there controls every human colony. If we take it down and activate Elias's jammer from inside, we free humanity. All of it. One planet at a time." A young pilot spoke up nervously. "But it's heavily defended. How do we get through without being destroyed?" Mara smiled faintly. "We don't run. We fight smart. Diversion teams will draw attention. Our strike force, me, Elias, and a few volunteers, and go straight to the core spire. Timing is everything. If we fail..." She didn't finish the sentence. No one needed her to. Failure meant death. Elias felt his stomach twist. He wasn't a soldier, he was a scientist. But Mara's resolve, the hope of billions, pressed him forward. "We'll do it," he said quietly. Mara nodded. "That's the spirit. Humans are messy, unpredictable, and that's why we're unstoppable." The approach, the fleet moved as one, weaving between asteroid fields and debris to avoid Helian sensors. Mara's ship led the strike force, its engines glowing bright in the darkness. Outside, the stars streaked past. Elias gripped the controls of a small fighter escorting Mara. His hands shook, but he focused. The core spire loomed ahead, an enormous silver tower of alien design pulsing with energy. Suddenly, alarms blared. The Helians had detected them. Beams of blue light cut through space, aiming straight for the human fleet. Explosions erupted. Ships were torn apart, fire and debris scattering. Mara shouted into the comms, "Hold formation. Don't break ranks." Her voice carried authority. Despite the chaos, humans followed her. They were free now, and they were fighting for that freedom. Elias glanced at the core spire. "We won't last long if they focus on us." "Then we make every second count," Mara replied. Her hands danced over the controls, dodging energy blasts. Her eyes were calm, her mind focused. A nearby pilot called, "They've launched boarding drones. Then we meet them." Mara said, her voice sharp. "Human ingenuity beats alien machines every time." Inside the core spire, Mara's strike force entered the core spire through a narrow docking tunnel. Inside it was quiet, cold, and alien. The walls glowed faint blue, humming with energy. Elias's heart pounded. He had never seen such an enormous network. Wires, conduits, and alien machines pulsed in rhythm. Somewhere in this structure was the main signal hub controlling billions of humans. Mara whispered, "We have no time to waste. Set up the jammer." Elias unpacked the device quickly. Its lights blinked as he calibrated it to the core spire's frequencies. Mara kept watch at the entrance, blaster ready. Suddenly, a Helian commander appeared, taller than any human with silver skin and glowing eyes. Its voice was sharp, like metal cutting through air. "Humans, you cannot control yourselves. You are chaotic, weak. You do not deserve freedom." Mara stepped forward. "You're right. We're messy. We're loud. We make mistakes, but we are free." The Helian charged, energy radiating from its hands. Mara fired her blaster, dodging with incredible speed. Elias continued working, sweat dripping from his brow. The device hummed louder, its glow expanding. The Helian commander struck the floor, sending shockwaves. Mara leaped and kicked a control panel, causing sparks to fly. Elias plugged in the last wire. The jammer activated. Freedom. Across the stars outside, in the orbiting fleet, something miraculous happened. Helian control signals collapsed. The entire Helian armada froze, then went into confusion. Their perfectly coordinated attack fell apart. Ships collided, drones malfunctioned, and soldiers panicked. Back in the core spire, Elias watched the device's lights pulse. "It's working!" he shouted. The signal was spreading across planets, waking humans from centuries of mind control. Mara fought side by side with the remaining Helian guards. Humans who had been enslaved for generations began fighting back with renewed strength. The tide of the battle turned. The oppressors were losing control. The Helian commander roared, but without its network, it was no match. Mara and Elias coordinated the final strike. Explosions rocked the spire. Energy shields failed. And then, silence. Elias collapsed to the floor, exhausted. Mara stood looking out at the windows where stars burned bright. "Did we?" he asked, barely able to speak. Mara smiled. "Yes, we did it. Humanity is free." Aftermath, the core spire was destroyed, but its signal could no longer control humans. Across countless worlds, people woke from their mental chains. Colonies once enslaved now celebrated. Humans were free for the first time in generations. Mara and Elias returned to Haven Reach as heroes. Ships flew overhead carrying messages of victory. People who had never dared hope before now shouted and cheered. Rian came to them. "You've done what no one thought possible. You've given humans a future," Mara shrugged. "We just kicked open the door." They walked through themselves, Elias nodded. He thought about the quiet lab where he had started. The secret work that could have gone unnoticed forever. Now he saw the faces of free humans, their eyes bright with life. And he realized something Mara already knew. Humans could never be controlled completely. Not by fear, not by force, not by any alien empire. Mara looked at the horizon where stars stretched infinitely. The Dominion thought they could break us. They were wrong. Humans fight. Humans hope. Humans survive. And we will never stop, Elias smiled. And all it took was one door. She laughed softly. Not one. Millions, but every journey starts with one kick. The fleet rose into the stars, carrying the message of freedom across the galaxy. Mara Vance and Dr. Elias Ward looked at each other, tired but victorious. Humanity had been tested and it had passed. For the first time in centuries, humans were truly free. And somewhere in the galaxy, the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, because hope, once ignited, could never be extinguished.